All right, welcome back. Got a little more match footage for you, a little bit more about bug optics, or a little more bug optics footage for you to check out. Shot it again at a bug match. Did a little something different and did 6 rounds to begin with, and then loaded to a larger magazine, which I think would be an interesting way to continue in bug. But that's not what I want to talk to you about today. Today I want to talk to you about a little bit about Florida State and some of the division rules, or not division rules, but the rules that we have around when people don't make power factor or fail equipment check. And then I want to talk about retreat to cover, because I think that's an interesting topic that's been coming up a lot for me lately. So let's take a look at a few more stages and we'll come back and talk about those things. Why did you do that? So those are some of the stages from this last weekend. A few things I want to talk to you about today. First of all, a little bit of match review. Just recently, it was last weekend, I think, was the Florida State IDPA Championship. The reason I like talking about these is because I kind of want to see, like, I think we all do this. We're like, oh, I wonder what's going on in, like, the East Coast. I can't get to the East Coast all the time or very often. I'm in the West Coast, but I just kind of like, looking at what's going on in state matches, and the Florida State Championship was a big one. There was 315 people in there, and they didn't have PCC or bug. Not that those two divisions would add all that much more, but they didn't have PCC or bug. But somebody probably would have shot it if they'd offer it. But anyway. So coming on top of CDP was Brady Harden. I've seen his name at the top of CDP in lots of matches. So well done there. CCP was Zach Mitchell. Shot against Zach a number of times. He's a great shooter. Kind of looking at him in CCP this year with Austin moving on to CO. So we'll see how that goes. ESP was James McGinty. He's been around a long time, DM in ESP. Revolver was Bill Thorpe. I don't know Bill, but well done there. I've seen his name in Revolver before, I think. So well done, Bill. Overall and CO for the second time in the recent last few months or few weeks, Austin Prue and CO. So, as far as trends go, I think we're seeing a trend develop there in CO. So DQs, there were 6 DQs, so not that many, for as big a match as that is. There were 13 stages, 4 DNFs from what I can tell. And I want to talk about that a little bit, because it's kind of hard to tell based on the scores why some people at the bottom of the list are, like, they're DNF'd on one stage. And I think I know why, but I'm not entirely sure. So I was having a conversation with, it was on Facebook, I can't remember, but somebody that I talk to all the time on there, and they were telling me, that NFC, not for competition, is like no longer a thing. It's gone, it's out of the rule book, and there's not really a good way to handle a person or a shooter whose gear doesn't make it, or their power factor is too low or something like that. So I guess what people are doing is just DNFing them on one stage, and I looked in the rules, and he was right. I guess there's a provision in the match administration rules that says if somebody fails gear check or fails power factor, then it's at the match director's discretion whether or not they continue, which is good. It's better than before. I think before that it was like it's just a straight up DQ. So if your gear doesn't work or whatever, you have to stop shooting. So I like that they have the opportunity to keep shooting. I would like it if it were a mandatory thing. I don't think that I struggle to think that a match director would be like, no, like you can't do that. You can't, keep going for, even though you paid, $120, $150 to come here. I think that, anybody would probably let it go. But I just think that there probably should be. I like the idea of having an NFC. Just put them in NFC. Apparently there's some kind of problem with reporting scores then for nationals points. But I don't know, man. If you give everybody nationals points in NFC, then I think that would be just as easy. But anyway, just a couple observations there. But it looks like a great match. Like I said, it's far away from me here in Washington. I don't think maybe Alaska's probably closer. I don't think I can get much farther away than going down to Florida to shoot, but I have shot down there, and it's a great time. Anyway, sort of the larger discussion of what I wanted to talk about today was this has been coming up at a lot of local matches here. It seems like it pops up like once a year, but just lately it's been 2 or 3 matches in a row where I've been talking about this and explaining this. And that's I struggle to call it a rule because like I'm of the opinion that I don't think that it is. So this idea of the rule / practice of retreating to cover. So retreat to cover is something that the first time that it came to my attention, and that's kind of what I want to know from you guys, is like, apparently this is an East Coast thing because it was never a thing here in Washington or anywhere that I've shot in the West Coast. But in 2023 at the World Championship, there was a stage, and I'll put it up here in just a second. The way that I shot it anyway, I didn't retreat to cover because I didn't know it was a thing. Anyway, you had the ability to start in the open with one target. It was probably 15, 17 yards on your right, and then 2 more open targets on your left. And in front of you was a succession of like 3 walls and cover. And so what I didn't do and didn't realize was that it was my understanding that if you start in the open and there's targets that you're exposed to, that as soon as the beep goes off, you are exposed to those targets and they must be engaged. And that is the understanding of several people here in Washington, and it seems to be what causes the consternation. The ruling at Worlds was that a shooter could, and I'm finicky on this portion, so if I'm wrong about this, then fine, was that a shooter could retreat to cover, not drawing the weapon until they were behind cover, or their competition pistol, and then that target that's in the open no longer becomes a priority. The 2 on the left are still a priority, so those must be engaged first, and then positions of cover. And what it effectively caused was that you're skipping this 17 yard shot, and you could just run up and almost shoot it point blank. And so that's not how we all shot it on Thursday. I was a Thursday shooter that year, and everybody on Friday, we saw everybody doing it on Friday, and that was a ruling that it was retreating to cover. So let's take a look at that stage right now. I wish I had third person because it'd be a little bit easier to show, but I don't have that. I've just got the third person. So let's take a look at that. And then I want to talk about kind of the ruling or the document that came out explaining that after the fact. So let's take a look at that. Okay, so that's kind of the stage. That's how it went. We've had several instances here in Washington where it's set up similarly. Like just recently, we had a stage where you're exposed to 2 steel targets from the jump street, but if you retreat to cover, you could shoot it was one line at 10 or 12 yards, and so like everything was, you're basically running laterally, but you could shoot the steel from anywhere because you're more than 10 yards, and cover was available. You could shoot it from a position of cover, or you could, if you cross that opening again, you could shoot it again. And so retreating to cover actually made it a lot easier. It saved you a position, saved you time, and that really upset one of our SOs. And I don't mean to laugh at it, but like some people that shoot IDPA are not going to nationals. They don't know when these rules are made or interpreted, and so I was trying to explain, like, hey, yeah, this is so inevitably when this happens, because it happened again this weekend, because there was an opportunity to retreat cover. It came up at the SO walkthrough, and everybody's like, well, where is it in the rule book? And I'm sorry, it's not. Like, I'll put these screenshots up there, but like, if I go into the rule book and I type in, the find feature, and I type in search for the term retreat to cover, there's nothing in the rule book. I think there might be one instance where there's something about retreat in the rule book, but it doesn't say anything about, you can skip open targets and go to cover. There's nothing in the rule book that I can find about it. So this interpretation, I'm not sure where it comes from. And after Nationals that year, I, as a match director here in Washington, received a hey, these are some of the rulings that came out of Worlds, from the match administration from Worlds, and each one of those rule interpretations, which I thought was sort of telling, had a, hey, this is the rule interpretation and here's the rule. This is the rule interpretation and here's the rule. Like the M3-4 or whatever the nomenclature is for the rule that was cited, except for the retreat to cover example. They put the example of here's why retreating to cover is, here's how it's done. There was nothing in there that said here's the rule we're citing that makes this legal. So I kind of like, I'm the person that, like, I enjoy that. I think it's kind of a neat idea, because like in a quote unquote real world situation, like if you were like, oh shit, there's bad guys right in front of me, and like I got to get my gun out, I'm gonna get to cover before I do it. That seems to make sense to me. But this is a game, and if we're playing a game, then games have to have rules. And I just don't see it in the rule book anywhere for it to be a thing. So the long and short of it is, I'd like to know from anybody out there. I know that some of you that see these and watch these, and people who like videos with low production value, that watch these, you guys, have helped me out with rules or understanding or knowing where to go, set me in the right direction looking before. So I'm curious to know what people think about it and where I can justify this in the rule book, because as far as I can tell, like, it's not justifiable in the rule book. And so that means that in 2023, we just made a new rule. I mean, it's kind of like, the Supreme Court, isn't supposed to make laws, but they do sometimes, with their interpretations. That's kind of how this went. And so I think that if we're going to continue to do things like that, then we should put it in the rule book. So let me know what you think. Yeah, like I said, it's not the end of the world, but it's an interesting idea, and I'm talking about it because it keeps coming up. I wasn't going to bring it up because I don't really want to rock the boat on this, but like, it keeps coming up. So anyway, let me know what you think. Match schedule. March, end of March is Texas State. I'm going to go down there. Western in May. May's going to be super busy because it's like Western the beginning of the month. Then there's, I want to say, Area 1, something else in Idaho, a USPSA match. Maybe that is Area 1. And then Rocky at the end of the month. So that's going to be big. And then there's more in June. July is the Washington State Championship. Washington State Championship is open now for registration. There's still plenty of spots available. So if you feel like coming up to Washington, it's going to be a good match. We would love to have you. And yeah, if you have the time and the means, check out www.dz-214, where you can donate to all the vetted veterans charities that we support. And I said it, I got all the way through it, and I didn't even mess up saying that. So usually the vetted veterans charities screws me up. So yeah, we'll see you on the next one.